The first thing you are aware of is the cold. It is a deep, penetrating chill, the kind that seems to radiate from the very bones of the house. It is not yet dawn in London, in the year of our Lord, 1875. The faint, gray light that filters through the tall sash window of your bedroom does little to warm the air, serving only to reveal the fine layer of condensation clinging to the inside of the glass, each droplet a tiny, distorted lens reflecting a world of gray. You are lying in a large, four-poster bed, the heavy velvet curtains, the color of claret wine, drawn to keep out the worst of the city's miasma and the ever-present chill. The fabric is thick, its nap worn smooth in places, and it smells faintly of dust and thyme. The sheets are linen, cool and smooth against your skin, and the horsehair mattress beneath you is firm, a testament to quality craftsmanship, though it has, over the years, developed a subtle geography of dips and rises that your body knows intimately. Still, the cold finds its way in, a persistent, unwelcome guest. You stir, the movement causing a small protest from your joints, a quiet symphony of creaks and aches that has become the familiar overture to your day. The days are long, and the sleep is never quite long enough. Beside you, in the vast expanse of the bed, there is only stillness. Your wife, Eleanor, passed from consumption 3 winters ago, and the space she left has never truly been filled. Sometimes, in these first waking moments, when the mind is still adrift between the shores of dream and reality, you can almost feel the warmth of her beside you, almost hear the soft, whisper-like rhythm of her breathing. But it is only a memory, a ghost of warmth in a cold room. A deep, melancholic sigh escapes your lips, misting in the air for a moment before vanishing. It is a private grief, one you rarely allow yourself to acknowledge in the full light of day, but here, in the pre-dawn quiet, it has room to breathe. A distant sound reaches you from the street below. The slow, rhythmic clop-clop-clop of a dray horse pulling a heavy cart, the iron-shod wheels rumbling over the uneven cobblestones. The sound is muffled by the thick curtains and the glass, a low, percussive beat in the city's slow awakening. Soon, London will awaken fully, a great, sprawling, smoke-belching beast shaking itself from slumber. But for now, in this pre-dawn hour, there is a semblance of peace, a fragile quiet that will soon be shattered. You push yourself up, your back resting against the carved oak headboard. The wood is cool and solid against your nightshirt. The room is furnished in the heavy, dark, and somewhat oppressive style of the era. A mahogany wardrobe, large enough to hold a man's entire life of clothing, stands against one wall, its surface polished to a deep, lustrous shine by the diligent hands of your housemaid. A washstand, also of mahogany, with a large ceramic pitcher and basin, sits near the window. The pitcher is decorated with a pattern of blue willows, and a sliver of Pear's carbolic soap rests in a fluted dish beside it. A small fireplace, its grate swept clean and empty, waits for the housemaid to bring the morning's coal and kindling. This is your life. You are Dr. James Alistair Finch, a physician, a man of science, or what passes for science in this age of wonders and ignorance. Your day, as always, must start before the city's. Sickness does not keep to a gentleman's hours. With a groan that is part physical discomfort and part resignation, you swing your legs out of the bed. Your bare feet meet the cold, polished floorboards, and the shock of it travels up your spine, a jolt that is more effective than any alarm clock. You pad over to the washstand, the chill of the floor seeping into your soles. You pour water from the pitcher into the basin. It is icy cold, and as you cup the water in your hands and splash it onto your face, you have to suppress a gasp. The shock is brutal but effective. washing away the last vestiges of sleep and leaving you alert, your skin tingling. You towel your face dry with a crisp, rough linen cloth, the friction bringing a welcome warmth to your cheeks. Dressing is a methodical process, a ritual that varies little from day to day. It is the donning of your armor, the preparation for the battles ahead. You start with the undergarments, the long cotton drawers and the fine wool undershirt. Then the starched white shirt, its collar stiff and unforgiving against your neck. You fasten it with small, mother-of-pearl buttons, your fingers moving with practiced dexterity. The trousers are dark wool, impeccably tailored, held up not by a belt but by a pair of sturdy braces that cross over your shoulders. You pull on a waistcoat of dark, patterned brocade, its back lined with smooth, cool silk, and you check the contents of its pockets out of habit. Your gold pocket watch, an inheritance from your father when you graduated from medical college. You flip open the case. Its face is clean, the Roman numerals elegant and clear. It ticks with a steady, reassuring rhythm, a tiny mechanical heart measuring out the moments of your life. Next to it, a small, silver case for your spectacles, which you will need for reading later. You open a wooden box on your dresser and select a cravat. It is a somber collection of dark silks and muted patterns. You choose a simple one of dark navy and tie it with a 4-in-hand knot, a neat, efficient knot that you have perfected over years of daily repetition. Finally, you shrug on your frock coat, the black wool heavy and substantial on your shoulders. It is the uniform of your profession, a symbol of respectability and sober authority. It is a garment that opens doors and commands a certain deference. You look at your reflection in the large, gilt-edged mirror that hangs above the mantelpiece. You see a man in his late 40s. His hair, once as dark as the coat he now wears, is now liberally streaked with gray at the temples, a silvering that seems to have appeared almost overnight in the years since Eleanor's passing. There are deep lines etched around your eyes, the product of worry and long nights spent at the bedsides of the sick and dying. Your expression is serious, your gaze direct. It is a face that has seen too much of the city's suffering. It is the face of a Victorian doctor. You make your way out of the bedroom and down the grand, curving staircase. The house is silent, the servants not yet stirring in their attic rooms. Your footsteps on the thick Persian runner are muffled, but the old house groans and creaks around you, settling in the cold morning air. In the entrance hall, a cavernous space of dark wood and shadows, you collect your medical bag from a small, marble-topped table. It is made of sturdy, black leather, worn smooth and shiny in places from years of use. Its brass clasps gleam dully in the faint light. It feels heavy in your hand, both in its physical weight and in the weight of the responsibility it represents. Inside rests your medical toolkit. You open it for a quick inspection, the familiar scent of leather and carbolic rising to meet you. You do a quick mental inventory. Your stethoscope, the binaural kind with its rubber tubes and ivory earpieces, a relatively recent innovation that allows you to listen with both ears to the mysterious symphony of the human body. A set of scalpels, their steel edges honed to a razor sharpness, each wrapped in its own chamois cloth. Forceps of various sizes, probes for exploring wounds, a silver nitrate caustic holder for cauterizing proud flesh. A small, glass bottle of smelling salts for reviving fainted ladies. A small, glass syringe, its needle sharp, for injections of morphine, a blessed relief for the suffering and a dangerous siren for the unwary. And in a separate, velvet-lined wooden box, a set of lancets and a small glass cup for bloodletting, a practice you are beginning to doubt with increasing conviction, but which many of your patients, and indeed many of your colleagues, still expect. Tucked into a side pocket, a small tin containing a dozen leeches, nestled in damp moss, their dark bodies writhing slowly. An ancient remedy for an ancient ailment, the imbalance of humors. You check them, they are still lively. Satisfied, you close the bag with a decisive snap of its clasps. You pull on your heavy wool greatcoat and your tall silk hat, and with your bag in hand, you let yourself out the front door into the waking city. The air is thick with a familiar London fog, a swirling, yellow-gray mixture of mist from the Thames and the coal smoke from a million chimneys. It has a taste, acrid and sulphurous, and it coats the back of your throat. The gas lamps along the street still burn, casting long, eerie pools of yellow light that struggle to pierce the gloom. The world seems muffled, sounds are deadened by the thick air. You can hear the distant clang of a factory bell calling the first shift to work, and the cry of a lone street vendor, "Oysters, fresh oysters," his voice echoing strangely in the fog. Your destination is the local apothecary, a short walk from your residence in Bloomsbury. The doctor's day often started before dawn, with a visit to the local apothecary to prepare remedies and replenish supplies. You need to procure some tinctures for the day's rounds and to check on a new batch of digitalis being prepared from foxglove for a patient with a failing heart. The walk is a familiar one. You navigate the streets by instinct, your boots clicking on the damp, greasy cobblestones. A hansom cab rattles past, its horse a ghostly shape in the fog, the driver perched high on his seat, a dark silhouette against the glowing lamps. You pass a gin palace, its doors already open, spilling a wave of stale air, cheap perfume, and human misery onto the street. Even at this early hour, wretched figures, men and women, huddle in its doorway, seeking refuge from the cold and the harsh reality of their lives. You avert your gaze, a familiar pang of pity and frustration tightening your chest. The apothecary shop is a small, bow-fronted establishment tucked between a bakery, from which the warm, yeasty smell of baking bread is just beginning to emerge, and a tailor's shop, still dark and silent. A single gas lamp burns in the window, illuminating rows of large, glass jars filled with colorful liquids and mysterious powders. A sign above the door, written in elegant, fading gold leaf, reads, "T.H. Abernathy, Chemist and Druggist." You turn the cold, brass handle and step inside, a small bell tinkling merrily to announce your arrival. The smell is the first thing that hits you. It is an overwhelming, complex aroma, a symphony of scents that is the very essence of Victorian medicine. The sharp, medicinal scent of carbolic acid and ether, which you now associate with surgery and cleanliness, mingles with the sweet, cloying aroma of laudanum. There are earthy scents of dried herbs hanging in bunches from the ceiling, chamomile, valerian root, poppy heads, and the pungent, spicy notes of cloves and camphor. It is the smell of healing and poison, of relief and addiction, all mixed together in the close, still air of the shop. Mr. Abernathy, a small, bird-like man with spectacles perched on the end of his nose and a dusting of white powder on his waistcoat, is already at work behind the counter, grinding something in a large, marble mortar and pestle. The rhythmic scrape and crunch is a familiar, almost comforting sound. He looks up as you enter, a small smile touching his thin lips. "Dr. Finch, an early start for you this morning, as is your custom," he says, his voice a dry rustle, like old parchment. "Sickness, as you know, Abernathy, is no respecter of the dawn," you reply, placing your bag on the polished mahogany counter. The wood is cool and smooth beneath your hand. How is that preparation of digitalis coming along? Mrs. Gable's condition gives me cause for concern. Excellent, doctor. Excellent. A fine batch of foxglove this season, harvested at the correct phase of the moon, of course. The tincture should be most potent. For Mrs. Gable's heart, I presume? The dropsy has worsened, has it? Indeed. Her ankles are quite swollen, and she complains of a fluttering in her chest. The palpitations have been worsening. You watch as he carefully measures out the dark green liquid into a small, blue glass bottle, using a glass pipette. He writes a label in his spidery, precise script, tincture of digitalis. 3 drops in water, twice daily. For Mrs. Gable, this is the art of medicine in your time. A delicate dance between observation, tradition, and the burgeoning field of pharmacology. You know that digitalis, derived from the common foxglove plant, can slow and strengthen the heartbeat and act as a diuretic, but you do not know precisely why. The mechanism is a mystery. You only know that it works, sometimes. The dosage is critical. Too little has no effect, too much is a potent poison. You also request a bottle of laudanum, the tincture of opium that is the cornerstone of your practice. It is a pain reliever, a cough suppressant, a sedative, a treatment for diarrhea, colic, and neuralgia. It is a miracle and a curse, offering blessed relief from suffering but carrying the ever-present danger of addiction, a creeping dependency that you have seen consume the lives of too many of your patients, from the highest social strata to the lowest. Abernathy hands you the bottle, its contents a dark, reddish brown. A fresh batch, he says, his voice low. Very effective, from the finest Turkish poppies. You also replenish your supply of quinine for treating the ague, or malaria, as it is sometimes called, a common affliction for those who have served the empire in hotter climates. And a small, tightly stoppered bottle of carbolic acid. You are one of the few doctors in your circle who has begun to take Mr. Lister's theories on antisepsis seriously. The idea of invisible germs causing infection is still controversial, mocked by many of your more traditional colleagues as fanciful nonsense. But you have seen the results with your own eyes. Wounds cleaned with carbolic solution are less likely to fester. The ghastly specter of hospital gangrene seems to retreat before it. It is a simple precaution, and one you are increasingly convinced is vital. As Abernathy gathers your items, wrapping each bottle carefully in paper, you glance around the shop. The shelves are lined with jars containing ingredients that seem to belong more to an alchemist's laboratory than a place of healing. There are jars of powdered mummy, still believed by some to have curative properties. Jars of Spanish fly, mercury compounds, arsenic, dried herbs, strange roots, and mineral compounds. On the counter sits a large glass jar filled with dark, writhing shapes, their suckers pressed against the glass. The leeches. You check your own leech kit. The small creatures are still lively, but it is always wise to have a fresh supply. A half-dozen of your finest leeches, if you please, Abernathy. He nods, using a pair of forceps to select 6 of the largest, most vigorous specimens and placing them in your tin with fresh moss. Bloodletting, whether by lancet or leech, remains a common treatment for a vast array of illnesses, from fever to apoplexy, intended to restore the body's balance of its 4 essential humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. You find the theory increasingly archaic, but the power of patient expectation is a force to be reckoned with. To refuse a bleeding for a patient with a fever would be seen by many as gross negligence. With your remedies prepared and your supplies replenished, you pay Abernathy for his services, the coins clinking softly on the counter. He bids you good day, and you step back out into the fog-shrouded morning. The city is stirring more now. The sound of footsteps is more frequent, the rattle of carts more constant. You walk back to your residence, the weight of your bag a familiar burden, its contents a mixture of hope and helplessness. Back at home, the house is beginning to wake. You can smell bacon frying and coffee brewing, a welcome change from the chemical tang of the apothecary. Martha, your cook and housekeeper, a stout woman with a perpetually flour-dusted apron who has been with your family since before you were born, greets you with a nod as you enter the kitchen. "Breakfast will be ready in 10 minutes, doctor," she says. "And the post has just arrived. A boy delivered it not moments ago." She hands you a small stack of letters. You take them in your medical bag to your study, a room at the back of the house lined with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. This is your sanctuary, your place of work and contemplation. The room smells of old paper, leather, and pipe tobacco. You place your bag on the large oak desk, which is neatly organized despite the stacks of books and journals that threaten to overwhelm it. You sit in the worn leather armchair, the springs creaking a familiar welcome. You sort through the post as you wait for breakfast. A bill from your tailor, an invitation to a dinner at the Royal College of Physicians, and a letter from a colleague in Edinburgh, detailing his experiments with a new anesthetic called chloroform. He writes of its potency and its relative safety compared to ether. You set it aside to read later, intrigued. The advancements of Victorian medicine are happening at a dizzying pace, and it is a constant struggle to keep abreast of them all. After a hearty breakfast of bacon, eggs, kippers, and thick slices of toast with marmalade, all washed down with 2 cups of strong, black coffee, you return to your study to plan your day. You open your ledger, a large, leather-bound book where you record all your patient visits in a neat, sloping hand. You would make your rounds, visiting patients in their homes, a practice that consumes the majority of your day. Your patients come from all walks of life, a cross-section of London's rigidly stratified society, and your day will be a journey through those strata, from the heights of wealth to the depths of poverty. Your first visit is to a wealthy aristocrat, Lady Ashworth, in Belgravia. She is a long-standing patient, suffering from what her husband, a member of Parliament, calls a delicate nervous disposition, and what you privately diagnose as a profound and soul-crushing boredom, a common ailment among the women of her class. You summon your carriage, a small, enclosed brougham pulled by a single, steady bay horse named Hector. Your driver, a reliable man named Thomas, is waiting. He touches his cap as you approach. "Morning, doctor. To Belgravia, is it?" "Indeed, Thomas. To Lady Ashworth's." The journey to Belgravia takes you through the heart of the city. The fog has begun to lift, or rather, to thin, revealing the grand, soot-stained architecture of London. The streets are now a chaotic river of traffic. Omnibuses, double-deckered and packed with passengers, are pulled by teams of horses. Elegant private carriages of the wealthy, their lacquer gleaming, weave between them. Heavy drays and delivery carts, their wheels groaning under the weight of their cargo, move at a ponderous pace. The noise is a constant cacophony. The clatter of thousands of hooves on stone, the rumble of iron-rimmed wheels, the sharp cracks of whips, the shouts of drivers, and the cries of street vendors selling everything from hot pies to fresh flowers to live eels. It is the vibrant, chaotic, and utterly exhausting pulse of the world's greatest city. As you travel west, the character of the city changes. The narrow, crowded streets of Bloomsbury give way to the grander, more spacious avenues of the West End. The buildings are taller, cleaner, more ornate. The air itself seems to thin, to lose some of its sulphurous bite. You arrive in Belgravia, a district of immense, white stuccoed mansions and pristine garden squares. Here, the noise of the city is a distant murmur. The streets are clean, patrolled by uniformed porters. It is a world of immense wealth and privilege, utterly insulated from the harsh realities of the city that surrounds it. Lady Ashworth's residence is a towering, white stuccoed mansion overlooking a pristine garden square. A butler in full livery, a man who looks as solid and imposing as the house itself, opens the door before you even have a chance to knock. You are shown into a vast, opulent drawing room. The air is warm, smelling faintly of beeswax, dried lavender, and potpourri. The furniture is delicate and ornate, upholstered in pale silks. The walls are covered in hand-painted wallpaper depicting exotic birds and flowers. A fire crackles merrily in a large, marble fireplace, its warmth a stark contrast to the chill outside. It is a world of curated perfection, of suffocating beauty. Lady Ashworth is reclining on a chaise lounge, a book of poetry lying unread in her lap. She is a woman in her early 30s, beautiful in the fragile, porcelain doll style that is currently in fashion, but there is a palpable air of melancholy about her, a listlessness in her eyes. "Dr. Finch," she says, her voice a fragile whisper, as if the very act of speaking is an effort. "Thank you for coming so promptly. I have had a dreadful night. Such palpitations, and a feeling of impending doom." You sit in a small, gilt chair beside her, your manner calm and reassuring. "I am sorry to hear it, my lady. Pray, tell me more." You take her pulse. It is steady and strong, a healthy 70 beats per minute. You listen to her heart with your stethoscope, the cool metal of the chest piece a contrast to the warm silk of her dressing gown. Her heart sounds perfectly healthy, a regular, solid rhythm. You ask her a series of questions about her diet, her sleep, her daily activities. Her answers paint a picture of a life of utter indolence, a life devoid of purpose or meaning. She does not leave the house for days at a time. Her only exercise is a brief, slow walk in the private garden square. Her days are filled with empty hours, punctuated only by meals she does not cook and social calls she finds tedious. You know that what she truly needs is a purpose, a challenge, something to engage her intelligent but understimulated mind. But that is not a prescription a Victorian doctor can write for a woman of her standing. Her husband would be horrified at the suggestion that she engage in any form of meaningful work, even charitable work. Her role is to be decorative, to be a symbol of his wealth and status. And so, she languishes. Instead, you offer the remedies society expects. You diagnose her with a mild case of hysteria, a catch-all term for a host of female complaints believed to originate from a wandering womb or a general weakness of the nerves. You prescribe a tonic of valerian root and a mild sedative, a bromide, to help her sleep. You also suggest more fresh air and perhaps taking up a gentle, feminine hobby, like watercolor painting or embroidery. It is important to keep the mind occupied with pleasant thoughts, my lady, you say, your voice gentle. She thanks you profusely, a flicker of hope in her sad eyes. Her husband will settle your account later. Your fee for this single, half-hour visit is 2 guineas, more than a working-class family earns in a month. Such is the nature of social class and its impact on healthcare. As you leave the silent, opulent mansion and step back into your carriage, you feel a familiar sense of frustration and futility. You have treated the symptoms, but not the disease. The true disease is a society that confines women like Lady Ashworth to gilded cages, leaving them with no outlet for their energy or intellect. But you are a doctor, not a social reformer. You have other patients to see, patients with ailments that are all too real. Your next visit takes you to a different world entirely. You direct Thomas to drive east, toward the crowded, impoverished tenements of Whitechapel. The journey is a descent, both geographically and socially. The character of the city changes dramatically with every block. The grand squares and clean streets of Belgravia give way to the bustling commercial thoroughfares of the Strand, then the narrow, crowded streets of the City of London, and finally, as you cross into the East End, the landscape transforms into a grim tableau of industrial poverty. The buildings are crammed together, leaning against each other for support, their brickwork stained black with decades of soot. The air grows thick with the smell of poverty, unwashed bodies, rotting garbage, the chemical stench from tanneries and slaughterhouses, and the acrid smoke from countless cheap coal fires. This is the other London, the one the wealthy prefer to ignore, the one that festers just out of sight. You leave Thomas with the carriage on a main thoroughfare. It would not be safe to take it into the labyrinthine courts and alleys, and a private carriage would be a target for thieves. You proceed on foot, your black leather bag a stark symbol of your different status in this world of rags and desperation. You are heading to the residence of the Miller family. Their youngest child, a boy of 5 named Sam, has been ill with a fever and a sore throat for 2 days. You navigate the narrow, winding alleys, which are more like open sewers than streets. The ground is a treacherous mixture of mud, animal droppings, and household waste. Ragged children with old, knowing faces play in the filth. Women with tired, hopeless expressions gossip in doorways. Men, their faces grim with the struggle for survival, hurry past without making eye contact. The noise is a constant, oppressive din. The shouts of vendors, the cries of babies, the drunken arguments spilling out of pubs. The Millers live in a single room on the 3rd floor of a dilapidated tenement building. The staircase is dark, narrow, and rickety, the air thick with the smell of boiled cabbage and damp. You have to step over a sleeping drunk in the hallway, his body a bundle of rags, his breath a foul cloud of cheap gin. You knock on the door, a flimsy piece of wood that seems barely attached to its hinges. It is opened by Mrs. Miller, a woman who looks 20 years older than her actual age of 30. Her face is thin and worn with worry, her hands raw and chapped from endless work. "Doctor, thank you for coming," she says, her voice hoarse with fatigue and fear. The room is small, dark, and crowded. It serves as kitchen, living room, and bedroom for a family of 6. A single, small, grime-caked window provides the only light, and a meager fire in a small grate does little to warm the space. The smell of sickness hangs heavy in the air, a sweet, foul odor that you recognize immediately. Little Sam is lying on a pallet of rags in the corner, his breathing shallow and rapid, punctuated by a harsh, rasping sound. He is burning with fever. You kneel beside him, the floor cold and damp beneath your knees. Your heart sinks as you see the telltale signs. His throat is swollen, and when you gently open his mouth, you see it, a thick, grayish membrane covering his tonsils and pharynx, making it difficult for him to breathe. Diphtheria, the strangling angel of children. In this era, it is a virtual death sentence. There is no cure, no effective treatment. You have to contend with rampant diseases like this, with limited knowledge of hygiene and infection control, and a lack of sophisticated medical equipment. You know the disease is highly contagious, spread by the invisible germs Mr. Lister speaks of, but the concept of quarantine is poorly understood and almost impossible to enforce in a place like this, where families live packed together in unsanitary conditions. You do what little you can. You clean the boy's throat with a solution of boracic acid, a mild antiseptic, using a swab of cotton wool on the end of a pair of forceps. You try to dislodge a piece of the membrane to ease his breathing, but it is a delicate and dangerous procedure. The boy gags and struggles weakly. You prescribe a fever-reducing powder and instruct the mother to try to get him to sip water, to keep him hydrated. But you know it is almost certainly hopeless. The membrane will continue to grow, eventually suffocating him. You feel a profound sense of impotence, of failure. Your fine education, your black leather bag full of instruments, they are all useless in the face of this terrible disease. You speak to Mrs. Miller in gentle, honest tones. You explain the gravity of the situation without robbing her of all hope. It is a most serious affliction, Mrs. Miller. We must keep him comfortable and pray for his strength to overcome it. She listens, her eyes filled with a stoic, heartbreaking despair. She does not cry. The women of this world learn early that tears are a luxury they cannot afford. She knows. She has seen other children in the building taken by the same illness. When you leave, she presses a few pennies into your hand. It is all she has, money that should have gone for food. You try to refuse, but she insists. For your time, doctor. You accept the coins, feeling their pathetic lightness in your palm. This is the other side of your practice. No grand drawing rooms or silk dressing gowns here. Just the raw, unvarnished reality of life and death in the London slums. The starkest of contrasts, a daily journey between two nations, as the Prime Minister Disraeli had written, the nation of the rich and the nation of the poor. You walk back to your carriage, the weight of the Miller family's tragedy heavy on your soul. The contrast between their life and the life of Lady Ashworth is a chasm, a moral wound at the heart of your society. You are a bridge of sorts between these two worlds, but it is a bridge that can carry little of substance across the divide. The knowledge and care you can provide is so often determined by a patient's social standing. The wealthy receive comfort and placebos for their imagined illnesses, while the poor die from real ones for which you have no cure. The challenges of the profession are immense. You are fighting a war on multiple fronts. Against disease, against ignorance, against poverty and filth, and against the limitations of your own knowledge. You are a pioneer, standing on the cusp of a new age of medicine, but the darkness of the old age still clings to you, its superstitions and failures a constant presence in your daily work. The afternoon brings a new kind of challenge, an emergency. As you are consuming a quick lunch of bread and cheese back in your surgery, a small suite of rooms attached to your residence where you see patients who are able to travel, a frantic man, his face pale with panic, bursts in without knocking. His clothes are covered in grime and blood. Doctor, you must come. It's my brother, an accident at the factory. His arm, oh God, his arm. You waste no time. You grab your bag, which you had just begun to replenish, and follow him back to your carriage. To the Atlas Ironworks, Thomas. And spare no time. You shout, and the carriage lurches forward, Hector spurred into a brisk trot. The factory is on the south bank of the Thames, a massive, smoke-belching brick building, a monument to the industrial might of the empire. The noise inside is deafening, a relentless, thunderous clatter of hammers, engines, and grinding machinery. The air is thick with coal dust and the metallic smell of hot iron, and it is so hot that sweat immediately begins to bead on your forehead. The injured man is lying on the floor in a corner of the main workshop, a small crowd of silent, grim-faced workers gathered around him. He is a young man, no more than 20, with the powerful build of a laborer. His arm has been caught in one of the great steam-powered presses, and it is a mangled, bloody ruin. His hand is crushed beyond recognition, the bones shattered, the flesh torn and blackened by grease. He is conscious, his face pale and slick with sweat, his eyes wide with pain and shock. He is biting down on a piece of leather to keep from screaming. This is where the advancements of your era meet their brutal limits. While advancements like anesthesia were being made, surgery was still a risky and painful process. You know immediately that the hand and forearm cannot be saved. Amputation is the only option to prevent gangrene and save the man's life. You issue a series of sharp commands. You, fetch a sturdy table. You too, bring clean water and any clean cloths you can find. And I will need 4 strong men to hold him down, just in case. You open your bag and lay out your instruments on a cloth that one of the workers provides. A tourniquet, your largest amputation knife with its curved blade, a smaller scalpel, and a bone saw. You do not have the luxury of a proper operating theater. The factory floor, with its dirt and grime, will have to do. You administer chloroform, dripping the sweet-smelling liquid onto a cloth and holding it over the man's nose and mouth. Breathe deeply, you instruct him, your voice calm and authoritative. Breathe deeply and count backwards from 10. His struggles gradually cease as the anesthetic takes effect, his body going limp, his breathing becoming deep and regular. It is a mercy, this temporary oblivion. Before the discovery of ether and chloroform, patients had to endure surgery fully conscious, held down by force, their screams a horrific soundtrack to the surgeon's work. You work quickly and with intense focus. The noise of the factory fades into a dull roar in the background. You apply the tourniquet high on his upper arm to staunch the bleeding. Then, with the large amputation knife, you make a deep, circular incision through the skin and muscle, creating 2 flaps. The flesh parts, revealing the white of the bone beneath. There is a sickening, wet sound. You then take the smaller scalpel to clean the bone. Finally, you take the bone saw. The grating sound of the saw cutting through the humerus is one you will never get used to. It is a sound of profound violation, of reducing a living man to meat and bone. The workers holding him down flinch at the sound. Finally, the mangled lower arm is free. An assistant wraps it in a cloth and takes it away. Your work is not done. You must now deal with the brachial artery. You use forceps to find and clamp the main arteries and veins, tying each one off with a length of silk ligature. This is the most critical part. A single improperly tied vessel could lead to a fatal hemorrhage. You work with painstaking care, your fingers deft and sure despite the pressure. You then pull the 2 flaps of skin over the raw stump and begin to stitch it closed with a curved needle and silk thread, leaving a small opening at the bottom for drainage. Throughout the entire procedure, you are acutely aware of the risk of infection. You have washed your hands and instruments in a weak carbolic solution, but the environment itself is saturated with filth. The air is thick with dust, the floor is grimy, the men holding the patient are themselves unwashed. The new understanding of disease transmission and the importance of hygiene are still fighting an uphill battle against centuries of ingrained practice. You have done your best to give the man a clean surgery, but you know that laudable pus, the thick, yellow discharge once thought to be a healthy sign of healing, is a likely outcome. Sepsis, or blood poisoning, is the great killer of surgical patients. When the surgery is complete, you bandage the stump tightly with clean linen and wait for the man to awaken from the chloroform. He groans, his eyes fluttering open, his gaze falling on his bandaged arm. A look of dawning horror and despair fills his eyes. You have saved his life, but you may have destroyed his livelihood. A one-handed man will find it difficult to find work in a world that runs on manual labor. It was necessary to save your life, you tell him gently. The arm could not be saved. He says nothing, just stares at the empty space where his arm used to be, tears welling in his eyes. As you clean your instruments and pack your bag, the factory owner, a portly man in a fine suit who has been observing from a safe distance, approaches you. He presses a few shillings into your hand. "Thank you, doctor. A nasty business. Hope the fellow pulls through. Can't have him bleeding all over my factory floor. Good day to you." His callousness is breathtaking, but not surprising. To him, the injured man is not a person, but a broken piece of machinery, easily replaced. There is no compensation for his injury, no pension. He will be cast out, another piece of human wreckage on the shores of industrial progress. The rest of the afternoon is a blur of more routine visits. A follow-up on a child recovering from measles, her skin still bearing the faint, blotchy remnants of the rash. An elderly man with chronic bronchitis, his lungs ruined by a lifetime of breathing London's foul air. You can only offer him a cough suppressant laced with laudanum to ease his suffering. A young woman, a seamstress, with a persistent cough and a low-grade fever that you fear is the first sign of consumption. For each, you offer what you can: advice, tinctures, a reassuring word. But so often, you feel like you are simply managing a slow, inevitable decline, a physician fighting a losing battle against the overwhelming forces of poverty, pollution, and disease. In the late afternoon, you have an appointment that represents the future of your profession, a beacon of hope in a day of struggle. You visit a colleague, Dr. Matheson, who has recently acquired one of the new binocular microscopes from the German firm Zeiss. Developed during this time, the stethoscope and the microscope were revolutionizing how doctors diagnosed and treated illnesses. You have a simple monocular scope in your study, a useful tool, but this new instrument is a marvel of optical engineering. Matheson's surgery, in a respectable part of Kensington, is cleaner and more organized than most, a sign of his forward-thinking nature. He greets you warmly and leads you to his laboratory, a small room at the back of his house filled with beakers, test tubes, and the gleaming brass and black lacquer of the new microscope. "James, you must see this," he says, his eyes bright with the pure, unadulterated excitement of scientific discovery. He has prepared a slide with a drop of pond water from the serpentine. "I was showing my son yesterday. It is a veritable universe." You lean forward and put your eyes to the twin eyepieces. For a moment, all you see is a blur of light. Then, as you adjust the fine focus knob, a new world swims into view. A world teeming with life, invisible to the naked eye. Tiny, translucent creatures, animalcules, as they are called, dart and spin and tumble through the water. There are paramecia, shaped like tiny slippers, covered in cilia that beat in unison to propel them forward. There are amoebas, formless blobs that extend pseudopods to engulf even smaller organisms. There are vorticelli, shaped like tiny bells on stalks that contract and expand. They are alive, a vibrant, hidden ecosystem in a single drop of water. You are mesmerized. It is one thing to read about these creatures in journals, another thing entirely to see them with your own eyes. If such a complex world of life exists in a simple drop of pond water, you think, then what of Lister's germs? What invisible life might be swarming in the air, on our hands, in the wounds of our patients? The microscope offers a terrifying, exhilarating glimpse into a reality you are only just beginning to comprehend. It is a moment of pure scientific wonder, a bright spot in a day filled with so much suffering and frustration. You and Matheson spend an hour taking turns at the microscope, discussing the implications of what you are seeing. You talk of Pasteur's work in France, of the debate over spontaneous generation. This is the frontier of medicine, and you are standing on it. As evening falls, you make your way home, your mind still buzzing with the images from the microscope. The gas lamps are being lit again, their gentle hiss a familiar evening sound. A lamplighter with a long pole moves from lamp to lamp, bringing a chain of light to the darkening streets. The avenues are crowded with people heading home from work, their faces tired and smudged with the grime of the city. The social classes mingle on the pavements but do not mix. The wealthy in their carriages, the clerks and shopkeepers hurrying home on foot, the laborers trudging wearily toward their tenements. Your work extends beyond the purely medical sphere. You are a pillar of the community, interacting with families from all walks of life. This evening, you are scheduled to deliver a public lecture at a local mechanics institute, a place of education for working men. The topic: hygiene and the prevention of cholera. It is part of your personal crusade to spread the new gospel of sanitation. You speak to a small but attentive audience of about 30 working-class men and women in a drafty, gaslit hall. You explain, in simple, clear terms, the work of Dr. John Snow, who, 20 years earlier, had traced a cholera outbreak in Soho to a contaminated water pump on Broad Street. You speak of the importance of boiling water, of washing hands, of keeping homes and streets clean. You describe the Great Stink of 1858, when the stench from the polluted Thames was so overwhelming that Parliament had to drape its windows in sheets soaked in chloride of lime. That event, you explain, finally spurred the city to build the great sewer system that is now nearing completion, a monumental feat of engineering that will save countless lives. There is some skepticism in the audience. The idea that a disease as deadly as cholera could be caused by something invisible in the water is hard for many to accept. They are used to thinking of disease as a miasma, a bad air, or as a punishment from God. A man at the back stands up. "But doctor," he says, his voice rough, "if this cholera is in the water, why ain't we all dead? We all drink the same water from the company pump." It is a good question, and you answer it patiently. You explain that the contamination is not always present, that it comes from the waste of those already sick with the disease. You explain how one contaminated well can poison a whole neighborhood. You are planting a seed of knowledge that you hope will take root and save lives. This is another part of your duty as a doctor. Not just to treat the sick, but to teach the healthy how to stay that way. After the lecture, you finally return home for the last time. It is late, nearly 10 o'clock. The streets are quieter now. Martha has left a simple supper of cold meat, bread, and cheese for you in the dining room, along with a bottle of ale. You eat alone, in the grand, silent dining room. The silence of your empty house is a stark contrast to the noise and chaos of your day. After your meal, you retire to your study. You pour yourself a small glass of sherry and settle into your armchair by the fire, which Martha has kindly lit for you. The warmth feels wonderful on your tired bones. You pick up the letter from your colleague in Edinburgh and read about his experiments with chloroform. He describes how it can be used to induce a deeper, more stable state of anesthesia than ether, with fewer side effects. It is another step forward, another weapon in your small arsenal against pain. You spend the next hour reading through the latest edition of The Lancet, the premier medical journal of your time. You read of new surgical techniques, of debates about germ theory, of statistical analyses of mortality rates. It is a world of rapid change, of exciting discovery. It is what keeps you going. This promise of a future where you will have more answers than questions, more cures than palliatives. Finally, your eyes grow heavy. The long day has taken its toll. The print on the page begins to blur. You place the journal on the table beside you and stare into the dying embers of the fire. The flames have burned down to a soft, pulsing red glow. You think back on your day. The bored, wealthy woman in her gilded cage. The dying child in the filthy tenement. The factory worker with his mangled arm. The wonders revealed by the microscope. Each patient, each case is a small story in the grand, sprawling narrative of this city, of this era. You are a witness to it all, a participant in its struggles and its triumphs. You reflect on the legacy of Victorian medicine, on how the advancements and challenges of this era are shaping a new world. The work of men like Lister, Snow, and Pasteur is laying the foundation for modern healthcare. You are a part of that, a small but significant part. You are a Victorian doctor, a man caught between the shadows of the past and the bright, promising light of the future. It is a heavy burden, but also a profound privilege. With a final sigh, you push yourself to your feet. It is time for bed. You make your way up the dark, silent staircase, your hand trailing on the smooth, cool wood of the banister. In your room, you undress slowly, your movements heavy with fatigue. Each item of clothing feels heavy, imbued with the weariness of the day. You extinguish the gas lamp, plunging the room into near darkness, the only light coming from the faint glow of the city through the window. You pull back the covers of your bed and slip between the cool linen sheets. The mattress receives your weary body, and you feel a profound sense of release, of surrender. The sounds of the city are more muted now. The endless rumble of traffic has subsided, replaced by the occasional clatter of a late-night cab and the distant, mournful whistle of a train from Euston Station. You can hear the steady ticking of your pocket watch on the nightstand, a faithful companion counting out the last moments of the day. Your breathing deepens, becomes slow and regular. The thoughts of the day begin to fade, to soften, to dissolve like sugar in tea. The faces of your patients, the sounds of the factory, the smell of the apothecary, they all recede, replaced by a growing sense of peace. You are drifting now, on a calm, quiet sea, the tide of sleep pulling you gently out into the darkness. Your body is heavy, your mind is still. The day is done. The triumphs and failures are recorded in your ledger, in your memory. Tomorrow, it will begin again. But for now, there is only this perfect, profound stillness. This blessed, healing rest. The weight of your body seems to merge with the mattress, the boundary between self and bed blurring into a single, comfortable heaviness. Your mind, which has been a frantic theater of diagnosis and decision all day, is now a quiet, empty hall. The players have gone home, the lights are dimmed. The last few embers of conscious thought glow and fade, like the dying coals in your study fireplace. You think of the human body, that intricate, fragile machine you spend your life trying to repair. You see it in your mind's eye not as a collection of symptoms, but as a marvel of design. The steady, powerful pump of the heart, a muscle that never rests. The delicate, branching network of the lungs, like trees of air. The astonishing complexity of the brain, a universe of thought and memory locked within a fragile skull. You have spent your life studying its maps, learning its secret languages, but you know you have only scratched the surface of its mysteries. For every disease you can name, there are a dozen you cannot. For every remedy in your bag, there are 100 ailments it cannot touch. It is a humbling profession, a daily education in the limits of human knowledge. The ticking of your watch on the nightstand seems to slow, each tick separated by a longer and longer pause of silence. Tick, pause, tick, pause. The rhythm matches the slowing of your own heart, the deepening of your own breath. You are on the very edge of sleep now, the shore of consciousness receding behind you. A final, fleeting image comes to you. The slide under Dr. Matheson's microscope. Those tiny, vibrant creatures, the animalcules, darting and spinning in their hidden world. You imagine them now, not in a drop of pond water, but in the very air of the room, in the blood coursing through your own veins. A secret, invisible world, teeming with life and, perhaps, with death. The thought is not frightening. It is simply vast. It expands your understanding of the world, pushing the boundaries of the known out into an infinite ocean of the unknown. It is a thought too large to hold onto, and you let it go, releasing it into the quiet darkness of the room. And then, nothing. You are asleep, a deep, profound, and dreamless sleep. The kind of sleep that only comes after a day of immense labor and emotional exhaustion. It is a complete surrender, a temporary death from which you will, hopefully, be reborn with the morning light. The house is silent around you. The city is silent. The world has ceased to exist. There is only the darkness, the quiet, and the slow, steady rhythm of your own breathing, a single, living metronome in a world of stillness. The darkness is not empty. It begins to coalesce, to take on shapes and forms, as the first tendrils of a dream weave themselves into the fabric of your unconsciousness. You are walking, not through the familiar, grimy streets of London, but through a vast, cavernous space. The walls are made of polished brass and gleaming crystal, like the inside of some impossibly large machine. It is the lantern room of a great lighthouse, but magnified 1,000 times. The great Fresnel lens, with its hundreds of prisms, towers over you, each facet reflecting a different version of yourself, 1,000 Dr. Finches staring back with solemn eyes. The rhythmic creak and tick of the clockwork mechanism is the only sound, a sound that seems to come from inside your own chest. You are not alone. Eleanor is here. She is not the frail, coughing woman of her final days, but the vibrant, laughing girl you first met at a summer picnic 25 years ago. She is wearing a simple white dress, and her dark hair is unbound, flowing over her shoulders. She does not speak, but she smiles, a smile of such warmth and understanding that it seems to light the vast, mechanical space around you. She takes your hand. Her hand is not the thin, almost translucent hand of her illness, but warm and strong. She leads you to one of the great glass prisms of the lens. Look, she seems to say, though no words are spoken. You press your face to the cool glass, and you are no longer looking into the lantern room, but out into the city of London. But it is a London you have never seen before. It is a city made of glass, its buildings transparent, revealing the intricate workings within. You can see the people inside, their bodies also transparent, their hearts beating, their lungs breathing, their blood flowing through a delicate network of arteries and veins. You can see the diseases, the invisible invaders. You see the diphtheria in little Sam Miller's throat, not as a gray membrane, but as a writhing, dark vine, slowly choking the life from him. You see the consumption in the lungs of the young seamstress, a delicate, crystalline frost spreading through the delicate tissue. You see the hysteria of Lady Ashworth as a frantic, fluttering bird trapped within the cage of her ribs. You feel a profound sense of despair. You can see it all, the hidden enemy, with perfect clarity. But you are powerless to stop it. Your bag of remedies, your scalpels, your knowledge, they are all useless against this transparent, undeniable reality. You turn to Eleanor, your face a mask of failure. She simply smiles her gentle, understanding smile and places a hand on your cheek. Her touch is cool, like the glass of the prism. You do what you can, she seems to say. That is all any of us can do. And then the scene shifts. You are no longer in the great lighthouse. You are in your carriage, but it is not moving. It is still, and outside the windows is not the city, but a swirling, gray fog. The door opens, and the factory worker with the amputated arm climbs in. He sits opposite you. He does not look angry or sad. He simply holds up his bandaged stump. "You saved my life," he says, his voice clear and without accusation. But what is a life without a hand to work with? Before you can answer, the door opens again, and Mrs. Miller climbs in, her face etched with grief. She is holding a small, still bundle in her arms. "You came," she says, her voice a whisper. "You were kind, but kindness is not a cure." The carriage begins to fill with the faces of your patients, the living and the dead. Lady Ashworth, her eyes vacant. The old man with bronchitis, his breath a shallow rattle. The young boy with the sniper's rifle, his face a mask of surprise. They do not speak. They simply look at you with their sad, knowing eyes. The carriage becomes crowded, suffocating. The air grows thick with the smell of sickness and sorrow. You feel the weight of their suffering pressing down on you, the weight of your own failures. You want to shout, to tell them you did your best, that you are only one man, that you are fighting a war against an enemy you cannot even see. But you have no voice. You close your eyes, and when you open them, you are alone again. The carriage is gone. You are standing in your study, but the books on the shelves are all blank, their pages empty. Your medical bag is on the desk, but when you open it, it is filled with dust. A profound, soul-deep weariness settles over you. The dream is a reflection of your deepest fears. That your efforts are meaningless, that you are a charlatan, a man of science who is ultimately powerless in the face of death. A sound. A sharp, insistent sound, cutting through the deep layers of your sleep. At first, it is part of the dream, another voice in the crowded carriage. But it persists, growing louder, more urgent. It is a sound from the waking world. A knocking, a frantic, desperate knocking on the great oak door of your house. You are pulled from the depths of sleep with a jarring suddenness. You sit up in bed, your heart pounding, your mind disoriented. The room is pitch black. The fire has long since died, and the city outside is dark. The rain is falling steadily now, a soft, relentless drumming against the windowpane. The knocking comes again, louder this time, accompanied by a man's voice, faint but urgent. "Doctor, Dr. Finch. For the love of God, open the door." Reality asserts itself with a cold, unwelcome clarity. A night call. The bane of your profession, yet an undeniable part of your duty. You swing your legs out of bed, the cold floorboards a shock to your system. You fumble for the box of matches on your nightstand, your hands clumsy with sleep. You strike one, the flare of it momentarily blinding you. In its flickering light, you find and light the small oil lamp on your bedside table. Its warm, yellow glow pushes back the darkness, revealing the familiar shapes of your room. The knocking continues, more desperate now. "I am coming," you shout, your voice thick with sleep. You pull on your trousers and shirt, not bothering with the cravat or waistcoat. Speed is of the essence. You shrug on your dressing gown, a heavy wool garment, and thrust your bare feet into your leather slippers. You grab the lamp and hurry from the room, down the silent, echoing staircase. The knocking has roused Martha. You see her at the top of the servants' stairs, a candle in her hand, her face a mixture of sleep and concern. "I will see to it, Martha," you say. "Go back to bed." She nods, but you know she will wait, listening, until she knows what the trouble is. You reach the front hall and unbolt the heavy door. As you pull it open, a gust of cold, wet wind sweeps in, making the lamp flame dance wildly. A man stands on your doorstep, soaked to the skin, his face pale and frightened in the lamplight. He is a young man, well dressed despite his disheveled state, clearly a gentleman. "Dr. Finch?" he asks, his voice trembling. "Thank God. You must come at once. It is my wife. It is the baby. A difficult childbirth. One of the most dangerous situations a doctor can face. You waste no time. Where do you live?" You ask, your voice all business now, the fogginess of sleep completely gone. "Kensington. Not far. I have a cab waiting." "Give me 5 minutes," you say. "I must fetch my bag and dress." You leave him shivering in the hall and hurry back upstairs. You dress quickly, this time in your full professional attire. The frock coat, the hat. You go to your study and retrieve your medical bag. You do a quick check of its contents, adding a few items specific to childbirth. A larger set of forceps, a bottle of ergot to control postpartum bleeding, and a fresh supply of chloroform. You then return to the waiting man. "I am ready," you say. "Let us go." The journey through the deserted, rain-swept streets of London is an eerie experience. The city, so vibrant and chaotic by day, is now a ghost of itself. The gas lamps cast long, wavering reflections on the wet, black cobblestones. The endless rumble of traffic has been replaced by the steady drumming of the rain and the lonely clatter of your cab horse's hooves. The driver, huddled under an oilskin cape, urges the horse on through the empty streets. The young husband, whose name you learn is Mr. Davies, sits opposite you in the cramped, musty-smelling cab, wringing his hands, his face a mask of anxiety. "It is their first, you see," he says, his voice tight. "The midwife has been with her all day, but she says things are not progressing as they should. The pains are terrible, doctor, and she is so weak." You offer what reassurance you can, but you make no promises. Childbirth in this era is a perilous journey for both mother and child. Puerperal fever, the dreaded childbed fever, is a constant threat, an invisible killer that can turn the joy of birth into a tragedy of death. The work of Semmelweis in Vienna and your own countryman, Oliver Wendell Holmes, on the contagious nature of the disease is still not widely accepted. Many doctors still go from the dissecting room to the delivery room without so much as washing their hands. You, however, have read their work, and you are a convert. Cleanliness is your new creed. The cab pulls up outside a respectable, but not opulent, house in a quiet Kensington street. You are shown upstairs by a tearful housemaid to the birthing room. The room is warm, too warm, and stuffy. A large fire roars in the grate, and all the windows are tightly shut, a common practice believed to prevent the mother from catching a chill. The air is thick with the smell of sweat, fear, and something else, the metallic tang of blood. The scene is one of controlled chaos. The midwife, a stout, no-nonsense woman with decades of experience, is at the bedside. The patient, a young woman named Mary, is lying in the large canopied bed, her face pale and beaded with sweat, her body writhing with the force of a contraction. Her mother and sister are also in the room, offering words of encouragement and wiping her brow with a damp cloth. You introduce yourself quietly and set down your bag. You first speak to the midwife, showing her the respect her experience deserves. You do not want to alienate her, you need her as an ally. She describes the situation in low, professional tones. The labor began yesterday morning. The waters broke 12 hours ago. The contractions are strong, but the baby is not descending. She fears it is a malpresentation, perhaps a breach. You wash your hands meticulously in a basin of hot water with a large piece of your carbolic soap, a practice that still earns you strange looks from some midwives. Then, you approach the bed. "Mrs. Davies," you say, your voice calm and gentle. "My name is Dr. Finch. I am here to help you." She looks at you with wide, frightened eyes, too exhausted to speak. You perform a gentle examination. The midwife was right. The baby is in a transverse lie, positioned sideways across the womb, an impossible position for a natural birth. Intervention is necessary. You have two choices. You can attempt an internal version, a difficult and dangerous procedure where you try to turn the baby by hand inside the womb. Or you can use forceps. Both carry significant risks for both mother and child. You decide on the version first. It is less invasive than the forceps. You explain the procedure to Mr. Davies and the other women in the room. You do not sugarcoat the risks, but you express a quiet confidence in your abilities. You then ask everyone except the midwife and the mother's mother to leave the room. The presence of too many anxious onlookers will only make the patient more distressed. You administer a small amount of chloroform, just enough to dull the pain and relax the uterine muscles, but not enough to render her fully unconscious. You need her to be able to push when the time comes. Then, with your hand lubricated with lard, you begin the delicate, blind work of trying to turn the baby. It is a slow, painstaking process. You must work between contractions, your hand deep inside the patient's body, feeling for the baby's head and feet. The room is silent, save for Mrs. Davies's pained groans and the steady drumming of the rain outside. The minutes stretch into an hour, then 2. Your arm aches, your back is stiff, and sweat is trickling down your face, but you persevere. Finally, you feel the baby shift. With a final, careful manipulation, you manage to turn it into the correct, head-down position. A small, collective sigh of relief goes through the room. The first battle is won. But the war is not over. The mother is exhausted, her contractions weakening. You administer a small dose of ergot, a powerful uterine stimulant derived from a fungus that grows on rye. It is a dangerous drug. Too much can cause the uterus to rupture. But in this case, it is necessary. The ergot works. The contractions return with renewed force. Now, you must guide the baby's head through the birth canal. This is the long vigil of the obstetrician. Hours of waiting, of watching, of offering quiet encouragement. You sit by the bedside, your hand resting gently on the mother's abdomen, monitoring the baby's position. You check the fetal heartbeat periodically with your stethoscope, a faint, rapid drumming that is both a sign of life and a source of constant anxiety. The night wears on. The fire dies down to embers. The oil lamp sputters, and you ask for it to be refilled. The house is quiet, its other inhabitants asleep or waiting in anxious silence below. In this small, warm room, time seems to suspend. There is only the rhythm of the mother's breathing, the ebb and flow of the contractions, and the steady, patient work of bringing a new life into the world. You speak to Mary in a low, soothing voice, telling her when to push, when to rest. You are a coach, a guide, a calm presence in a storm of pain and effort. At last, just as the first, faint, gray light of dawn begins to filter through the window, you see the baby's head begin to crown. One more push, Mary, you say, your voice firm but gentle. One more good push, your baby is almost here. With a final, heroic effort, she bears down, and with a rush of fluid and blood, the baby is born. It is a boy. He is small and blue and silent. For a heart-stopping moment, the room is filled with a terrible silence. You work quickly. You clear the mucus from his mouth and nose with your finger. You hold him upside down and give him a sharp slap on the back. He sputters, coughs, and then lets out a thin, wavering cry, a sound that is more beautiful than any symphony. The tension in the room breaks. The mother weeps with relief and exhaustion. The grandmother murmurs prayers of thanks. You tie and cut the umbilical cord, and hand the squirming, crying bundle to the midwife, who wraps him in a clean, warm cloth. Your work is still not done. You must deliver the placenta and then stitch a small tear the mother sustained during the birth. You work with the same meticulous care as before, your stitches neat and precise. You then clean the mother and make her comfortable, and you administer another small dose of ergot to ensure the uterus contracts properly and to minimize the risk of hemorrhage. Only when the mother is resting peacefully, her baby nestled in her arms, do you allow yourself to relax. You wash your hands and face, the cool water a blessed relief. The midwife offers you a cup of tea, and you accept it gratefully. It is strong and sweet, and it tastes like victory. As you drink your tea, you look around the room. The scene of chaos and crisis has been transformed into one of peace and quiet joy. The new father, Mr. Davies, has been allowed back in, and he is staring at his son with a look of utter awe and wonder. You have not just delivered a baby, you have delivered a family. It is in these moments that the immense burdens of your profession feel worthwhile. You have fought a battle against death, and for today, you have won. You pack your bag, your movements slow and deliberate, your body aching with a profound weariness. You give the new parents your final instructions on caring for the mother and child, and you promise to call again the next day. As you leave the house, the sun is rising, a pale, watery disk in a sky washed clean by the night's rain. The city is waking up again, the familiar rumble of traffic beginning its daily crescendo. You have been awake for more than 24 hours. You walk home through the morning streets, too tired to bother with a cab. The air is fresh and cool. The city looks different at this hour, softer, less menacing. You feel a sense of detachment, as if you are a ghost moving through a world that is just coming to life. You have been in the crucible, in the place where life and death meet, and you are returning to the world of ordinary things. When you arrive at your house, Martha is already up, preparing your breakfast. She looks at your weary face and says nothing, but she makes your coffee extra strong. You eat your breakfast in your study, the familiar comfort of the room a welcome balm. You open your ledger and, with a hand that trembles slightly with fatigue, you make a new entry, to Mrs. Mary Davies, for services rendered in childbirth. One male infant, delivered safely. Mother and child are well. After breakfast, you know you should go to bed. But first, there is one more thing you must do. You go to your desk and take out a fresh sheet of paper and a pen. You dip the pen in the inkwell and begin to write a letter to your colleague in Edinburgh. My dear Matheson, you write, I must thank you for your recent letter regarding the use of chloroform. I had occasion to use it last night in a most difficult confinement, and I can attest to its remarkable efficacy. You are a man of science. and the advancement of knowledge is a duty that transcends even your own exhaustion. You will share what you have learned, contribute your small piece to the great, growing edifice of medical knowledge. It is your legacy, the only immortality you seek. Finally, your letter written and sealed, you make your way upstairs to your bedroom. The room is now filled with the pale light of a new day. You undress slowly, each movement an effort. You pull back the covers of your bed and slip between the cool, clean linen sheets. The mattress receives your weary body, and you feel a profound sense of release, of surrender. The sounds of the city are now in full chorus, the rumble of traffic, the cries of vendors, the endless, energetic hum of life. But you do not hear it. You are already drifting, the tide of sleep pulling you swiftly and surely out into the deep. The day is done. The night is over. A new day has begun. But for you, for now, there is only this. This perfect, profound stillness. This blessed, healing rest. Tomorrow, it will begin again. The calls, the cases, the triumphs, the failures. But for now, you sleep. The triumphs and failures are recorded in your ledger, in your memory. You are aware, in the final fleeting moments before sleep claims you entirely, of the rain against the glass, a gentle, persistent tapping, like the fingers of a patient spirit waiting to be let in. It is the last sound you hear as the world dissolves. Light, not the sharp, invasive light of a lamp, but a soft, diffuse glow. It penetrates the heavy velvet of your eyelids, not as a command to wake, but as a gentle suggestion. You are floating in a sea of warmth and stillness, your body anchored to the mattress by a pleasant, leaden weight. For a long, luxurious moment, you have no name, no profession, no memory of the day before. You are simply a consciousness adrift in comfort. Slowly, like a ship returning to a familiar port, the details of your life begin to reassemble themselves. The bed beneath you, the room around you, the city outside your window. The name that is yours, Dr. James Alistair Finch. The previous day and the long, arduous night that followed, comes back to you not in a rush, but as a series of disconnected images and sensations. The gray, hopeless face of Mrs. Miller. The shocking red of arterial blood against white linen. The grating sound of the bone saw. The overwhelming, sweet smell of chloroform. The miraculous, wavering cry of a newborn child. It feels less like a memory and more like a fever dream, a story that happened to another man. The exhaustion was so complete that it seems to have scoured your mind clean. You open your eyes. The room is bright. Sunlight, a rare and precious commodity in London, is streaming through the sash window, the night's rain having washed the perpetual grime from the air. Dust motes dance in the golden shafts of light, tiny celestial bodies in their own silent, spinning universe. By the quality of the light, you can tell it is late in the morning, perhaps 10 o'clock or even later. You have slept through the entire morning, a luxury you have not allowed yourself in years. Your body, it seems, has finally enforced its own demands, overriding the strict discipline of your daily routine. You stretch, a long, slow extension of your limbs. Your muscles protest, stiff and sore from the prolonged exertion and the awkward postures of the previous night's work. Your back, in particular, is a landscape of dull aches and sharp twinges. You sit up slowly, pushing yourself against the headboard. The house is not silent. You can hear the distant, rhythmic thud of Martha beating a rug in the back garden, the faint clatter of pots from the kitchen, and the muffled rumble of midday traffic from the street. The world has gone on without you, and the thought brings a small, weary smile to your lips. You pour water from the pitcher into the basin. It is still cool, but no longer icy. Martha has likely replaced it this morning. As you wash, you take stock of yourself. There are dark circles under your eyes, a testament to your long vigil. Your hands, as you wash them, feel steady, but there is a deep-seated tremor in the muscles of your arms. You dress slowly, your movements deliberate. Each item of clothing feels familiar and comforting. The starched collar is an unwelcome constraint against your tired neck, but you tie your cravat with the same neat precision as always. The habits of a lifetime are a kind of scaffolding, holding you up when your own strength falters. Downstairs, the house is clean and orderly. The quiet hum of domestic industry a soothing counterpoint to the chaos of your professional life. Martha meets you in the hallway. "Doctor," she says, her expression a mixture of concern and her usual sternness. "I kept your breakfast warm. I did not have the heart to wake you. You looked fair exhausted." "Thank you, Martha. That was most considerate." "HMPH," she says, which is her equivalent of a tender sentiment. A man cannot heal others if he does not tend to himself. It is in the kitchen. The breakfast she has saved for you is simple but substantial. A plate of coddled eggs, toast kept warm under a silver dome, and a pot of fresh, strong coffee. You eat at the small table in your study, the morning sun warming your back through the window. As you eat, your gaze falls upon the letter you wrote to Dr. Matheson, which is still lying on your desk, waiting for the afternoon post. You think of the microscope, of the hidden world in a drop of water. It seems a lifetime ago. After your meal, you do not immediately prepare for rounds. Today will be different, a day of recovery, of quieter duties. You open your ledger and review the previous day's entries. Each name evokes a face, a room, a story. Lady Ashworth in her silk-draped prison. The Millers in their desperate, heartbreaking squalor. The young factory worker, now a cripple. And the Davies family, at the dawn of their new life. You pause at that last entry. You should pay them a follow-up visit this afternoon, to check on the mother and the child. It is a necessary duty, but also one you anticipate with a rare sense of satisfaction. But first, you must attend to your instruments. You unlock a cabinet in your study and take out a wooden box containing your cleaning supplies. You spread a clean linen cloth on your desk and lay out the instruments you used during the amputation and the childbirth. The scalpels, the forceps, the bone saw. They are all stained with dried blood. You meticulously clean each one, first in cold water to remove the blood, then in hot water with carbolic soap, and finally, you wipe each instrument with a cloth soaked in a strong solution of carbolic acid. The sharp, clean smell of the acid fills the study. This is your ritual, your act of faith in the new science of antisepsis. You are fighting an invisible enemy, and this is your only weapon. The cleaning process is slow and methodical. It takes you the better part of an hour, but when you are finished, the steel instruments gleam, their deadly purpose masked by their pristine cleanliness. It is early afternoon by the time you summon Thomas and the carriage. "To Kensington, Thomas," you say. "The Davies residence." The journey is different from the frantic, rain-lashed rush of the previous night. The sun is out, the streets are dry, and London is in the full, glorious flood of its midday activity. The carriage ride is a pleasant, gentle rocking. You find yourself observing the city not as a doctor rushing to a crisis, but as a simple passenger. You see the faces of the people on the pavements. The hurried clerk with his portfolio, the fashionable lady with her parasol, the grubby street urchin trying to sell matches. Each one a story, each one a potential patient, each one a mystery of flesh and blood. The Davies residence is quiet when you arrive. The frantic anxiety of the previous night has been replaced by a hushed, reverent atmosphere. You are shown upstairs by a smiling housemaid. The birthing room has been cleaned and tidied. The fire is banked low, and the air is fresh. Mary Davies is propped up against a mountain of pillows in the large bed, her hair brushed and tied back with a ribbon. The pallor and exhaustion are gone from her face, replaced by a soft, luminous glow. She is no longer a patient in the throes of a medical crisis. She is a new mother. "Dr. Finch," she says, her voice weak but happy. "We are so very grateful. It is my pleasure to see you looking so well, Mrs. Davies," you reply. You perform a brief examination. You take her pulse, which is strong and regular. You check her temperature, which is normal. Most importantly, you check for any signs of puerperal fever, abdominal tenderness, a foul-smelling discharge, a rising fever. There are none. Your insistence on cleanliness, on washing your hands before the examination and delivery, seems to have paid off. It is a small victory, but one that feels momentous. You then turn your attention to the baby. He is asleep in a large, beribboned bassinet by the bed. He is no longer the blue, struggling creature of the night before. His skin is a healthy pink, his breathing deep and regular. You listen to his heart and lungs with your stethoscope. The sounds are perfect, a tiny, rapid drumbeat and the soft whisper of air. He is a healthy baby boy. The father, Mr. Davies, comes into the room, his face beaming with a pride that is almost comical in its intensity. He shakes your hand vigorously. "A son, doctor. You have given us a son. Your wife did all the work, Mr. Davies," you say with a smile. "I was merely a humble assistant." You spend half an hour with the new family, answering their questions about feeding and bathing, offering advice and reassurance. You are no longer just a surgeon who has performed a technical procedure. You are a family doctor, a trusted advisor, a participant in one of the most fundamental human experiences. As you leave, you feel a sense of warmth and satisfaction that has nothing to do with the fee you will receive. You have brought a new life safely into the world, and you have protected the mother from the fever that claims so many. Today, you are not a failure. Today, you are a healer. The rest of the afternoon is a quiet one. You have instructed Thomas to take you back to your residence. There will be no more rounds today. The emergency of the night before has earned you a respite. You have a simple lunch of cold meat and bread in your study, and then you decide to dedicate the rest of the afternoon to the other essential part of your professional life: study. A doctor who does not read, who does not keep up with the latest discoveries, is a doctor who is falling behind, a danger to his patients. You select a heavy, leather-bound volume from your shelves. It is a new text on cellular pathology by the German physician Rudolf Virchow. You have been meaning to read it for weeks. You settle into your armchair by the window, the afternoon sun providing excellent light. The text is dense, written in a formal, academic style, and filled with Latin phrases. But the ideas within are revolutionary. Virchow argues that all diseases are ultimately the result of changes in the body's cells. Omnis cellula e cellula. All cells arise from pre-existing cells. It is a radical departure from the old humoral theories, a new way of understanding the body not as a collection of fluids, but as a community of living cells. You become completely absorbed. The world outside your study window fades away. You are no longer in London, but in a microscopic landscape, journeying through the tissues and fluids of the human body. You read of inflammation, of thrombosis, of the strange, uncontrolled proliferation of cells that is cancer. It is a difficult, challenging read. Your mind has to work to grasp the new concepts, to reconcile them with what you were taught in medical college. But it is also exhilarating. It feels like a key is being turned in a lock, opening a door to a new, more rational understanding of disease. This, you think, is the future. You read for several hours, until the light begins to fade and your eyes grow tired. You set the book aside, your mind buzzing with new ideas. You then turn to your correspondence. You reread the letter you wrote to Dr. Matheson this morning. You add a postscript, describing the successful outcome of the Davies birth and attributing it, in part, to your strict antiseptic procedures. You then write another letter, this one to a former professor at Edinburgh, a man you greatly respect. You describe the case of the factory worker with the crushed arm, and you ask his opinion on the best methods for preventing surgical sepsis. You are a student again, seeking knowledge from a wiser mind. As evening approaches, you have one final appointment. A patient is coming to your surgery for a consultation. You prefer to see patients in their own homes, where you can observe their living conditions, which so often play a crucial role in their health. But for those who are able to travel, a consultation in your surgery is more efficient. At 6 o'clock precisely, your bell rings. Martha shows the patient into your consulting room, which is adjacent to your study. He is a man in his 50s, a prosperous-looking merchant, but his face is pale and his posture is stooped with discomfort. He is suffering from a chronic case of dyspepsia, or indigestion, a common ailment among the city's businessmen. You listen patiently as he describes his symptoms: a burning pain in his stomach, excessive wind, a general feeling of malaise. You perform a thorough examination. You listen to his heart and lungs. You palpate his abdomen, feeling for any lumps or tenderness. The examination reveals nothing obviously sinister. You conclude that his condition is likely the result of his diet and his stressful lifestyle. The modern businessman's lunch is a heavy, hurried affair, washed down with ale or wine. His evenings are often spent at dinners where rich, indigestible food is consumed in vast quantities. The human stomach, you reflect, was not designed for such a relentless assault. You prescribe a simple remedy: bismuth subcarbonate, a white powder which you mix with bicarbonate of soda and a little powdered ginger. You measure out the ingredients yourself, using a small set of brass scales on your desk, and fold the powder into a piece of paper. 1 teaspoonful in a glass of water, to be taken after meals, you instruct him. You also offer some lifestyle advice. You must eat more slowly, sir, and take a walk after your meals. A pipe of tobacco may be enjoyed in moderation, but you must reduce your consumption of sherry and port. He listens dutifully, but you suspect the dietary advice will be harder for him to follow than the prescription. He pays your fee of 1 guinea and departs, seemingly satisfied. With your last patient gone, your workday is finally over. You have a quiet, solitary dinner in your dining room. Martha has prepared a simple but delicious meal of roast chicken and boiled potatoes. The familiar, comfortable routine of the meal is soothing. The polished silver, the clean white linen, the quiet ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. It is a world of order and stability, a necessary antidote to the chaos and uncertainty of your professional life. After dinner, you do not return to your medical texts. Tonight, you will allow yourself the luxury of reading for pleasure. You retire to your study, light a pipe of Virginia tobacco, and settle into your armchair with the latest installment of George Eliot's Middlemarch, which is being published in parts. You lose yourself in the lives of the inhabitants of that provincial town, in the story of the ambitious young doctor, Lydgate, whose modern, scientific ideas clash with the ingrained prejudices of his community. You feel a strong kinship with Lydgate, with his struggles and his aspirations. The house is quiet. The fire in the grate burns low, its embers glowing a warm, comforting red. The pipe smoke hangs in the air, its sweet, aromatic scent a familiar comfort. You read for an hour, then two. The story is a compelling one, a mirror held up to your own world. Finally, your head begins to nod. The book grows heavy in your hands. The day, despite being quieter than the one before, has taken its toll. The deep reservoir of your fatigue has not yet been refilled. You mark your place in the book and set it aside. You knock the ashes from your pipe and stand, stretching your stiff limbs. It is time for bed. You make your way up the familiar staircase, your footsteps the only sound in the sleeping house. You undress slowly, your mind quiet and calm. You slip into bed, the cool sheets a welcome caress against your tired body. The sounds of the city are a distant, gentle murmur. You can hear the faint, far-off cry of the night watchman calling the hour. Your breathing is slow and even. You are at peace. The day was a good one. A life was brought safely into the world. Knowledge was gained. Small battles were won. You close your eyes, and this time, sleep comes not as a surrender to utter exhaustion, but as a gentle, welcome friend. You drift away, your mind empty, your body at rest, ready to be renewed by the long, quiet hours of the night.